All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's wonderful to have everyone here today. We're getting folks signed in here now. Welcome to the webinar. My name is Celeste Grootman. I am the CEO of DataQuest, and I'm so excited to be hosting you all for this conversation today with Kishana Peck. We're going to get it started here in just about 2 minutes. Until then, please just take a moment, introduce yourself, tell us where you're from. We're going to have learners and beginners and people who are a little bit further along in their journey from all over the world today. It's great to see folks from all over the world. And tell us, what your current goals are, what you're here for today. We are going to have time to really customize and answer a lot of questions. Meg from Tampa, Florida, big shout out. I hope you were okay in the hurricane. We're still removing some trees here from our backyard. We have so many folks here today. I'm not going to be able to say hi to everyone, but wonderful to have you here, and thank you for introducing yourself. And we're about 3 minutes out. Yeah, I know we have so much to cover, so I'm just going to dive right in here, Kishana. This webinar series is all about preparing for your first job in data. And over the next 5 sessions, we're going to cover everything you need to prepare for that role. We're going to look at the skills that you need to get started, what it's going to take to build a portfolio, how to craft a resume that's going to help you to stand out, and how to prep for those interviews. Our goal here is to not only give you the skills and insights you need, but also to connect you with others who are on the same journey. So you see we have over 200 students here right now. We have over 700 folks registered for this webinar today. And over the next 5 webinars, we'll have over 1,000 people who have joined us and are going to be right there with you going through this process. So our goal is not only to do that, but just to create that network, because interviews are hard and we get that. So by the end of this series, we hope you're going to have the tools and tips to feel that confidence and to feel prepared as you move forward with your career. So this webinar is Prepare Your First Data Job. We're going to be then going into building and presenting a data portfolio. We're going to be talking about crafting and standing out with your CV, interview preparation, and then networking and community building. And Kishana has really some special skills in the networking and community space. And that is definitely going to be one that you're going to want to attend. She has really mastered the art of this, and you should just soak in everything that you can from her there. So let me introduce you to Kishana. She is the founder and CEO of Women in Data Science, and she is a powerful advocate for really anyone who wants to start the career that they want in data. She has over 10 years experience leading data teams and shaping strategies across nonprofits, fintech, and advertising. She's a true leader in the field, and she has helped bring so many people up behind her as she's really bootstrapped and built her career herself. So she founded Canada's first conference for women in data, and she's now grown a thriving community with over 4,000 members, helping them build their own data careers. She's an established speaker and thought leader. She's known for her work in AI and data literacy, and she's been recognized in numerous publications, the Globe and Mail, Breakfast Television, CP24, and other prominent media outlets. She brings a wealth of experience here today, insight and passion, and she's just the perfect mentor for this masterclass. So I'm thrilled that we get to have her here. Yeah, I'm grateful that she's spending some time with us. So Kishana, thank you so much for being here today. And I'm just going to hand it over to you now to lead us.
Thanks so much for having me, Celeste, and thank you for the warm introduction. I'm really excited for these sessions and the fact that we're going to be together for, I think it's 5 webinars, because each week we're going to be able to build on what we learned from the time before. So I'm just going to share my screen. Not sure if you can see it or not. You can let me know. Can you see my screen, Celeste?
Let me,
Oh my God, I don't know where it went. I think you can.
there
Oh,
we
I'm seeing
go.
thumbs ups.
Yes, you're good now.
Okay. So we're going to be going through launching your data career from entry level to success. So I'm going to first go through what my journey was like. So I'll go through an intro of that. I'll also go through are you ready? Because that you need to be ready before you go through this process. And also some entry level basics. So what are some basic things that you need to know no matter on the type of role that you're looking to do? And also what's next, which will touch on the different sections that we'll go through the different webinars. So I'll start with myself. My name is Kishana Peck. I'm the CEO of WomenX in Data Science. As Celeste already mentioned, I have over 10 years experience in the data industry. I was always the first data hire, so I was able to build nascent teams and processes and really build things from the ground up. I got involved in data before it was a big thing. So I've been really um, excited about the field and the way that it has grown over the last few years. So, as a poll, I just wanted to know what your current skill level is with data science and AI right now. I have 2 polls, so I have this one and I have another one. So, beginner, you're new to coding. Intermediate, you have some experience with coding. Expert, you have extensive experience. And there's a second expert there, but you know it's supposed to be 3. So basically, that is to get an idea of what your skill level is at, and you can also align it with the paths that you're doing in DataQuest. Have you finished a new path? How far are you through going through that path, whether it's a skill or a career path? So I'll just give you a minute to fill that out and for me to see the results of that. And also, it doesn't matter where you are right now. We're basically going to go through how you get to where you want to go. So don't feel any shame in whichever level you're at right now. Okay. And I have a second poll, which is what's your timeline for you to secure your first data role? I think I just saw the summary of the last question, and I think the majority of you were beginners followed by intermediate. So this one is what's your timeline for your first data role? And it's within the next 3 months, within 6 months, within a year, over a year from now, and you're not sure yet. And this is really important for me to know as well, because it'll help me gauge the intensity of the information I should be giving you, and whether you need like extra customized support. Okay, so those were my 2 polls. And what we're going to start off with, I'll just wait for those results to pop up. Okay, so the majority of you are within the next 3 months. We have 6 months, we have within a year, over a year from now, and not sure yet. So I'll definitely be focused on like the within 3 and the within 6, and provide like that intensity that the ones that it's within a year or over a year from now, you can still use those tips. So my journey, I'm really happy that I was able to find this visual um, to be able to kind of demonstrate what it has been, because it has been full of ups and downs. So I wanted to start with the fact that I was not supposed to be here. It was not in my plans. I never woke up one day and said that I wanted to be a data professional. It wasn't on my list of things I wanted to be when I grew up. So, what was on my list of things that I wanted to be when I grew up? So, first, I wanted to be a singer. I actually love to sing. And my parents told me that I couldn't be a singer and I should become a lawyer. Unfortunately for both of us, that is not what I'm doing now. I'm an entrepreneur. I also wanted to be a writer. So I used to write songs and I used to sell them to my parents' friends, or people at schools for birthdays. So it's like I almost made personalized birthday cards. I used to want to be a chef. So in high school, I actually was running my own little restaurant out of my house because I was 5 minutes away from the high school. So I would take orders the night before, and I would, because my background is Jamaican, it would be something like rice and peas with chicken and salad and a dessert. And I sold that for $5. Unfortunately, that math made no sense and I made no money. And I also wasn't putting into account the fact that my parents were working for me for free. Which, if you're running a business, you want to be able to pay people. So I wanted to be a chef. The lawyer thing was definitely my parents. Um, and I wanted to run my own business as well. As you can see from my ideas of running my own restaurant and selling the songs that I was writing. But what really happened was I got to grade 11. And at grade 11 in Canada, there's a split. So this is around, I would say, 15, 16 years old. There's a split that you no longer need to take math after grade 11. So I was getting C's in math, and my teacher told me that I don't need to take any more math classes. I could just continue on without it. So I believe this teacher, of course, and I was really happy to not have to take any more math. And when it came time to apply for university, I couldn't apply to maybe 70% of the programs because they required math. They required grade 12 math, and I had none. So the way that I chose my program was by process of elimination, and I ended up in sociology. So I was taking the sociology program, and I really only had choices of two schools to go to because I wanted to continue speaking French. I had taken French since elementary school, so there were two universities for me to choose from. I chose one, and I started taking sociology. It was easy for me in the sense that I could write my papers the night before, which is probably from the fact that I enjoy writing. And I was getting really good grades, and I said, hey, I actually want to do something more challenging. And I decided to switch schools. So I switched universities to the other university that I could go to because they also had French. And I switched programs to economics, which I couldn't have applied to before because they required math. But since I was a transfer student, it's almost like it didn't matter if I had the math or not. So then I transferred to economics, and this is what it felt like. I felt like I was a fish trying to climb a tree. I didn't understand the material. I didn't have the math background, so I ended up having to teach myself calculus, calculus 1 and calculus 2. Luckily, I had really good math teachers, so they helped me through that once I did teach myself the grade 12 math. I actually failed stats. I failed stats 1, and then I passed, and then I failed stats 2, and then I passed. And it wasn't until I got to fourth year that everything started making sense. Like I started understanding the more advanced classes. I did well in courses like econometrics, which has a good amount of math in it, and working with data. And I started to notice that, okay, like I do like working with data, but it never crossed my mind that I wanted to be in that field. And I never really thought of it like that. But it did help me notice that the type of teachers that I went to, the structures of the courses, I had to be very mindful of that as I was going through my educational journey. So then, as next steps, I graduated, and I got my first job as a financial analyst. I was just covering a maternity leave. And while I was covering that maternity leave, I noticed that as I was doing that maternity leave, I had a moment again where I was trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grow up. You will notice that this is a consistent thread throughout my life. And while I was doing that, there was a contest going on with the Canadian Council of CEOs to explain to them why youth should get chances to get their first jobs, which is very interesting because that's what we're talking about now. You may not be a youth, but you are looking to break into a different industry, because there is that circular motion of how do you get experience without experience. So I was invited to that, and I actually met a lot of the CEOs in Canada. So then I met someone from that event who became my mentor. And they one of the core questions they left me with is like, what are the three things that you would want someone to know about you? So for me, it's that I'm a problem solver. I have a strong willingness to learn and the ability to influence and impact. Like those were my three things. And then I went back to thinking about what I wanted to be again. And I was like, okay, I want to be a consultant. And I was thinking through like what would make me the best consultant. And I was like, if I was able, because in my limited view, what consultants did is they recommended solutions to people, to companies. They basically were idea generators. So I was like, the way that I would be able to be the best consultant is if I would be able to back up my recommendations with information, with facts. And then as I started to look and look and look, this is in like 2014, 2015. I learned about data analytics. And I was like, okay, I'll take a course, I'll take a postgrad certificate in data analytics. So I ended up going back to school. So while I was in school, I might have been in the second month of my program, and I ended up getting a internship. So I got an internship at a company within their product department. They didn't have a data function, and everything that I learned in class, I was able to apply at work. Now, you also have that opportunity because with Data Quest, you have the projects that you're able to do where you can apply the skills directly. And that actually accelerated my learning. And as my capstone project, my project was to basically convince them that they needed to hire me full time and that this function, this data function, would help grow the department. So I was able to successfully do that during my capstone presentation. And I went from internship to full-time role 2 days before I found out I was full-time. I tried getting a job at one of the restaurants as a waitress, and they did not accept me, and it broke my heart. And I remember being like, what am I going to do? I took a whole bartending course. I was basically doing everything in case I didn't get this role. But I did end up getting it because I showed like a very strong case as to why it would be beneficial to them. And I also learned how to interview from the fact that the last role that I had as a financial analyst, I actually worked at an employment center. So I was going to those workshops as well, and I kind of had like an insider look of how the job search project process goes, because half the time it is not the most skilled person that gets chosen for the job. It's how well you position yourself and how well you interview. So yeah, not to say that I wasn't the best person for the job, but learning how to interview and how to position myself from my resume, and from my portfolio. Those were strong things that helped differentiate me. So it was actually lonely being the only data person in a department. And that's when I started WomenX in Data Science. I started the first conference for women in data in Canada. I planned it in 6 weeks. We had over 100 attendees. And as I looked around the room, it wasn't as diverse as I was hoping it would be. So we started building out more programs around data and AI literacy. And it's actually our 100 Days of Code program that started my relationship with DataQuest. So in 2021, July 2021, I actually quit my job. So the whole time I had my business as a side hustle while I was working full time. And by this time, I was actually leading data teams. And I was dealing with a lot of discrimination in the workplace, which, as you can see by this graphic that's there, it's actually a process that happens to a lot of other women of color as they enter organizations. And this is what I was experiencing. And against the advice of accountants, I quit my job, which meant that I had the choice to find a new job or to grow my business. I was interviewing, but in the end, I decided to grow my business. So that's what I have been doing. And since I quit my job, I have actually tripled revenue since then. So I actually went back to school one last time, and I finished in 2024. I did my master's of management in artificial intelligence. I never thought that I was going to be able to go back to school because I had to basically pay for it out of pocket because there's no company that could pay for me. But I understood that the skills that I would be learning in the program were beneficial for myself as a leader in data and AI, and also for my community as I'm able to share the knowledge that I learned throughout the program to allow this education to be more accessible. So some of the things that you might be wondering is what happened to my dreams. So natural language processing is related to writing. So I'm interested in how those systems work. My law degree never happened, but I'm very interested in the ethics of AI. For music, I'm interested in the applications of music and AI. For cooking, I still eat as a data professional, and currently I am a entrepreneur and I do have consulting projects that I work on. So at WomenX in Data Science, we believe that anyone can become data literate in partnering with organizations where women can thrive, and that more women should be the creators, not just the consumers of AI products and services. Some of the events and programs that we have at a glance is we have an inclusive AI product development course that we sell to companies. We have virtual events like our hybrid roles in the tech industry event. We have in-person events in Toronto, Montreal, Calgary, and Vancouver called Data Nights, where we focus on something AI related like robotics, AI ethics, computer vision, and natural language processing. We also have our Data membership, which is our online membership, which you'd be able to get group coaching, build something AI related once a quarter, access resources and community. Our 100 Days of Code we do with DataQuest, and it's usually from January to April. Our 8th conference is in May. It has 3 streams: technical, executive, and business. And we have our award ceremony and pitch competition every September. Some other resources we have is we have our podcast that has a new episode every 2 weeks, a resource hub with study guides. If you wanted to read a book about something data and AI related, we have an accompaniment for that. Videos of past events and also different posts from our sponsors. We also have data and AI career and business coaching. And we also have a job board. So we have roles up of companies that are looking for data and AI professionals. So enough about me. Are you ready? So now we're going to go through the different steps that you need in order to assess whether or not you are actually ready for your first data role. So the first thing is, where are you going? What is it that you want to do? So I know with some people who have done our 100 Days of Code challenge, they've started with maybe data scientist and then noticed that they weren't really interested in it and switched to data engineering or data analyst. What is your end goal? So starting with the end goal, that can allow us to understand where it is that we're going. And then the next thing you're going to do is assess where you are now. So we actually have a document in Notion that I can send to you that has a self-assessment of where you are now. So ranking the skills that you have based on the different areas that you want to go. Another way of assessing where you are now is if you were to look up a few of the job roles that you're interested in and take the roles and compare it to your resume. You can do this using like any large language model of your choice. Just make sure that you don't have your personal identifiable information in there, like your name, your address, and any of that. But you can basically ask it, what are the gaps between the role that I'm trying to get and the skills that are on this resume? So when you figure out where you're going, and where you are now, you can identify what the gap is. So the gap may be in your technical skills. Maybe there's a technology or a technique that you need to master before you get where you're going. But basically, you can figure out what the gap is, and based off of the gap, you can make a learning plan in order to fill those gaps. Sometimes the gap is related to a technical skill, sometimes the gap is related to a soft skill, or sometimes it may be related to an industry. So if you're interested in working at the intersection of health and data, the requirements may be very different than if you wanted to work at a generic tech company in data. Um, if you're looking to work in a specific industry, you might need to up that knowledge as well. So first, you're gonna see where you're going, like what is your end goal. And while you're assessing that, you also want to see like it's basically your time to market research where you want to go. So understanding the salary, understanding what kind of companies hire for this, understanding like what are they normally looking for, assessing where you are now, which I will share something with you after that you can do your self-assessment because that is your homework before the next session. And then identifying the gap, and then the next step would be showcasing your skills. So this would be through your portfolio, through your resume, um, basically anything that would allow you to showcase who you are, the skill set that you have before you do your search, which your search is going to involve networking. It's going to involve your interview prep. It's going to involve like the follow-up, because sometimes roles are lost just in how you treat that search experience. So we'll go through that as well. So some basics for entry level roles are technical proficiency, which I don't want to spend too much time on that because you're clearly taking DataQuest courses to build that technical proficiency. Effective communication. So based on the data role, there's varying degrees of who you'll be communicating with. And if you are communicating with the business side of things, you're going to need to be able to break down complex conversations into smaller conversations. Another thing you're going to need to be able to do is to be able to properly identify the problem. When you're dealing with other groups that are outside of the data group, you're going to need to be able to go through what they are requesting and better understand what the actual problem is before you start building a solution that has nothing to do with what they were trying to solve for. So effective communication is actually very important because if you're not able to do that, you're going to end up doing a lot of busy work. It's going to be difficult for you to be promoted because they're going to lean more on the fact that you're technically proficient and you don't have the other three areas that I'm going to touch on. So effective communication is actually very important. It's very rare that you're going to be in a room by yourself coding all day and not talking to anyone. Even if you are in the more back-end roles, like if it was a data engineering roles, there's still going to be interfaces with you and other people that may not understand the work that you're doing. Curiosity and adaptability is one of the entry level basics because you need to be curious throughout the process. And also, you're in a field now that requires you to have a high willingness to learn because everything is changing so quickly. So, curiosity and adaptability is really important. Also, when you're dealing with different areas of the business, the priorities may change. So, you need to be adaptable to that. And also try to think through when you're working with different business partners, what are the type of things that they would be looking for. And one of the things I always would tell my team is to anticipate the questions that are going to come from your results and from the work that you've been doing, so that way you're always ready. Another thing is a problem solving mindset, which should go without saying. So, exhibiting like a strong analytical thinking and attention to detail. If I'm hiring you and there's a lack of attention to detail in your resume, in your portfolio, for me, that's a red flag. Because as a data professional, you should have a high attention to detail, especially since one of the core things that you'll be doing is cleaning data, um, which attention to detail really helps with that. And with the analytical thinking, that allows you to do work that is above and beyond what mediocre standard work would be, because you're now thinking of what the next steps would be, and you're allowing the work to basically demonstrate the skills that would differentiate you from another candidate. So the environment right now is really saturated, especially with the tech layoffs. So you need to be able to differentiate yourself. Doing things that are just a minimum requirement aren't going to make it right now. You have to show that you're able to do more than the average person would do in the way that you think through the problems. So what's next? I'm going to leave a good amount of time for us to ask questions, but our upcoming session, our next one, is going to be building a data portfolio that stands out. So we're going to go through the actual tactical things that you should have, your do's and don'ts for your data portfolio, and how you can use what you've already been building on DataQuest for that. Crafting a resume that makes recruiters swipe right. So we're going to go through the resume. So those two parts, I feel like they fall within the preparation for you to begin applying. Acing data science interviews, which if anyone wants to offer themselves, we could do a hot seat. So that's something I can talk to the DataQuest team about. And then networking in data science. So what kind of communities, what kind of tactics can you use in order to network? Because the environment is competitive right now, you have to use different methods than just applying to the job boards. You're going to have to network within the space, whether that's going to events, connecting more intentionally with your LinkedIn connections, or joining communities. And your homework for the next session is to sign up for our newsletter to receive the Winter Arc workbook. So it's a free workbook that has a self-assessment in it. So a winter arc is basically the last 3 months of the year where you decide on a goal so you can prepare for 2025. So it has like a self-assessment in it. It allows you to set up your goals for this time period, especially for those who said that they want to secure a data role within the next 3 to 6 months. This would be a good jump for you. Even the ones that are further out than that, that also gives you time. So I'll provide the link for that. And then also start brainstorming project ideas for your data portfolio, because that is something that I'm going to ask next week when we meet again. So now I'll actually open it up for questions. So if you have questions, can you please put in the chat?
Thank you, Kashana. We have tons of questions. And actually, I'm going to direct everybody to the Q&A. So go ahead and type your questions there. I am going to start in the chat, and I'll go through the ones that we already have, and I'll kind of work my way down. But any further ones, if you can, it just keeps us a little bit more organized. So the first question we have here are, what are some of the top tasks for data analysts or data scientists, and top tools? Do I need to bother about web scraping using Selenium or Beautiful Soup and Python?
Okay, so it matters on the type of company that you're working with because there's even a problem with roles labeled as data analysts and it's actually doing data science work and vice versa. So there's a bit of a non-consensus around companies, and sometimes they're labeled as data analysts so that they pay less than the data scientist roles. So it's understanding like the level of maturity, data maturity of the company to be able to tell. And it's also very easy to see like what their tech stack is. So if there's certain industry that you're going into, usually for tech companies, they usually use Python. But if it's like a healthcare related or an academic setting, they usually use R. So it's just understanding what those different areas were. I feel like from a hiring perspective, I don't care what you use for data visualization, and you shouldn't necessarily care what you use for data visualization because you're going to have to learn the tool that they use there anyways. And they're more trying to see if you know how to use any tool because once you learn one, like when I was doing my postgrad, I actually learned SAS, and that has no, I've never used SAS at all in any of the roles that I had, but basically learning how to program that language, it was easier for me to mentally think about how to learn the other ones.
I
So,
like that. Like
yeah.
foundational. So what are some of the foundational skills that even with AI adoption you're seeing are still critical skills that folks should focus on right now to have?
I think SQL is definitely one of them. You definitely need either Python or R. And you need to be able to like frame, you need to be able to speak through the different steps that you would do in a project because that's where they're going to get you. Like if you can't explain to them how you went from like ideation to like the end of the project, that's usually when they're like, "Oh, you've never done this before or you don't know how to do it." And that's another reason why the projects are important. Because even with a project on data quest, it would be like you understand the problem and like you frame it that way. You'd figure out what data you have, you're looking at your data, you're cleaning it if you need to clean it, and you're going through the different steps. But it's like you need to be able to articulate the steps that you're taking. For sometimes there's different coding assessments with the different companies, and there's things like leak code that you can practice on. um but it's like as long as you can explain your mistakes or your approaches, you're usually safe. But I know for
Yeah.
myself, like I'm a horrible test taker. So what's been able to help me is like being able to explain like my thought process through it. Which as a hiring manager, I always wanted to know what was your thought process and to see if there were any gaps there. But the actual tools that you use, I feel like they don't really matter because you end up learning.
Like it's a focus on those core concepts. So another question here, what's the roadmap from where to start? And what are the tech stacks to start with? So I know in your 100 days of code, you use DataQuest. What's the path that you most recommend to beginners? That might be I know this question you could answer for 5 hours, so we'll keep it a little directed there.
I would say like the way that DataQuest is structured, I usually gear them towards the data analyst path because you can build on it with the data science path after, because there's overlap in the lessons. So I would always start them like on the data analyst side if they're completely new. If they're not new and they're switching, then I would tell them either the data scientist or the data engineering. That's how I would do it, or just start on a skills path if there's a certain thing that you're hoping to learn. But I don't think that, like, I feel like if you went straight into the data science path and you've never touched data before, it might feel a little bit overwhelming. So I usually tell them to go down the data analyst path first.
Amazing. All right. So the next question we have here is from Umesh. I'm not good at math, but I really like problem solving. I think that's really common. That and finding insight in data. Can I excel at data analytics?
I think yes. So as I mentioned before, me and math did not have a good relationship. It took a lot of trial and error for me, but even in my master's, like our math of AI course was all like linear algebra, calculus, and stats. Like those are the basics. And you need them to be able to understand the work that you're doing, especially as you get deeper into like different data and AI disciplines. So I would say don't run away from it. It's more you need to understand the concepts and how they relate to the work that you're doing. No one's saying you need to be a math whiz, but you need to understand the concepts. Like if you're a data analyst and you're not able to understand like why why you would use the median instead of the mean for certain data sets, then it's like there's a disconnect there. Or if you're not able to identify like the outliers because you don't understand how to look for those, there's an issue there. So if you think like I think it's a reframing of the fact that the math skills that you need to know are very elementary. And if you see them as like that they are just foundational and basics, it's not over the moon math, then you're able to sit down with it more and understand it.
I like that framing. The next question, we can see a lot of AI tools such as ChatGPT, integrations with AI tools in analytics tools. Is this going to replace data roles in the future? What are you seeing in the
Like
industry?
that's a tricky question. I am seeing, is it going to replace data roles? I feel like it's going to replace data roles for the companies that do not value data roles. And I think it's going to be a mistake to do so because, as I mentioned before, the technical skills is just one box. There are three other boxes being able to problem solve, being able to effectively communicate, and I forget the last one, but there were three. I think it was attention to detail. But it's like I feel like if you're a smaller company and you want to replace it, then there's no human in the loop to check that work. And you might need less people to be in those roles. But there's also a lot of companies where they're just starting their data teams. So their data maturity is very low on the scale. So they're still hiring. So I think with the emergence of more AI, there's going to be more companies that are interested in integrating data into their companies. The ones that are deciding that they want to get rid of their entire data team, like don't focus on them. Focus on the ones that are at more earlier stages. And since you are entry level and entering this field, if you're working with a company that is younger and is just starting in that field, that also allows you to learn more and to have more responsibility. So I would say if you aren't seeing, because you don't necessarily need to work at a big company, like there's a lot of small and medium sized businesses. So if you broaden your potential companies that you can work for, you will find there are different data roles that are available.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of organizations actually embrace more and more data roles with this technology because they're realizing how much more they can automate, how much more they can do, but they need people with these skills and who can understand this. So they're investing more in education right now. The We see a lot of data analytics courses in the market, but none of them have any programs which prepare students for one full end-to-end project in data analytics, combining many tools such as extraction, SQL, Power BI, Tableau all together. Even after working on some tutorial case from internet source, there is no one to guide how it can be done in one project. Can you suggest that? So one project that encompasses them all, is this what we should be like going for, or are we really looking for a portfolio that showcases lots of many projects?
I think it matters on how you want to approach it. So some of our career coaching clients, what they do with their portfolios is they have like one topic that they want to focus on. So if it was someone that was interested about like the intersection of health and AI, and maybe they wanted to look at um, data related to like clean drinking water or something, they would show like the process of how they thought through it, the data they collected, where they collected it from, how they cleaned it. Like it's they would they could choose that topic and expand it. But if you wanted to do like smaller projects that show each stage, you could do that too. I feel like for me, I would prefer that you have one that you went super deep into and that you can talk to me through an interview in. So it doesn't need to be related to my company. Like if it was that one that did the water that needed to be cleaned or something like that, and like visualizing like where the areas and where the issues, things like that, it's you being able to explain that to me and how you did it end to end that I care about. Seeing a whole bunch of projects that everyone else is doing, like if you got all your projects from Kaggle or something, is very unoriginal. I don't know how many Titanic portfolios we need to see, right? So I feel like it's also an opportunity for the entry level person to choose a topic you really enjoy and to go deep on it, to actually come up with a solution end to end. And you'll probably be using different tools. And a lot of the tools do have like a public version or like a version that students can use. Like I know Tableau has like Tableau Public that you can use. Um, but you should like I feel like there's an opportunity for you to go deep on a subject instead of doing disjointed projects.
Yeah, I think that where we've seen students really be successful is they've taken some of the starter projects on DataQuest, and then they've taken those as a jumping off point. They've expanded them, they've brought in other data sets, they've really made them their own. And those are the ones that they've been successful with. But you need to start somewhere, you need to build the skills first. Okay, so I'm just scrolling, sorry here.
Okay, it seems like there's a lot of
Um,
questions.
let's see, how much time do we have left? We have another like 10 minutes or so?
12. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'm a senior analyst who's dealing with time series forecasting most of the time. I feel I lag in skills for natural language processing and LLM, which are my area of interest. I also feel disconnected when I want to do end-to-end projects, which involve pipelines and production-ready projects. Which courses are available on DataQuest to get me ready for those skills? I would recommend that you look at our generative AI path and our data engineering path. Um, and I'm just answering this one
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, I don't know that one.
really fast. Yeah, that for Sumit, that's where I would start. Look at those two, and you can email me at hello@dataquest.io, and I'm happy to follow up personally on that one. Where do we showcase our projects? You can always do that in the community on DataQuest. And Kishana, do you have any other advice on showcasing projects elsewhere?
I've seen people do their own personal websites. I've seen people do their own GitHub. The other day I saw someone do it on Adobe. I think Adobe has like a portfolio option as well. It really matters on what is the easiest one for you to show. But the most common I've seen is GitHub.
GitHub, yeah. And then how is the data science job market? What are you seeing right now, Kashana, in the job market? I know you mentioned sort of medium and small size businesses as a really good place to look right now.
hmm the job market is very interesting right now. I feel like in a time where I thought that companies would lean more into their data professionals, like some are deciding to like scrap entire teams and replace it with tools. So you have that side, but then you also have the companies where they never thought about data and AI at all, and like now they're starting their own teams or like building what they plan to use. So it's kind of a mixed field. You also have the more experienced data professionals that are now looking for new roles. So the competition is different than if you were in any other time. That's why I'm trying to remind you of like the need to differentiate, and the need to be ready before you go out in the market so that you feel confident enough to secure these roles. Because as I mentioned before, half the time it is not about your skill, it's about how you interview. So if you don't feel like you don't have the skills, there's a disconnect there.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of our clients just getting back to the basics. I think 2 years ago, everybody sort of just had a moment of insanity.
hmm
And now everybody's kind of getting back to the basics and saying, we need to get back to our fundamentals. We know how to do this. We need people have the right education, and we're going to continue to build great products.
And sometimes I see it folded into like software engineering roles. So like I'm actually seeing like more people that are coming to us trying to build like the data and AI skills because now it's a part of what they're expecting from software engineers. So it's a very interesting time.
Absolutely. I'm gonna give this one to you, Kashana. So I have this question. Are Data Quest courses really worth it to land someone a job as a data scientist? Obviously, I'm biased. You've worked with a lot of students who have gone through our courses as part of your 100 Days of Code program. Why don't you share some of those experiences that you've seen?
I would say yes. Um, Again, it matters on who is hiring you. But a lot of the people that I know that hire, like they care about you being able to demonstrate the skill. They don't care what school you went to. So I know from myself when I was hiring, like I cared that you could show me that you know what you say you know, instead of which school was on your resume. Also, we're in a time where education is everywhere. So if you're able to show that you dedicated yourself to a program, you have projects, that works. That works. Like you don't need to go to some special school that costs thousands of dollars in order to do it. We've had people that have finished our 100 Days of Code program, and then they've gotten data roles like entry level data roles, or they've decided to like continue on with more advanced education. We also like when I was a leader of data, I would pay for my employees to take data quest courses to upskill them in the things that they didn't know yet but was a project that we would be working on it within the next 6 months. So it doesn't, the way that I see it is like this space, you have to continue learning or you will be left behind. Like that's just how it is. Like I said before, when I started, I learned SAS, which I never used and which is specialized for certain industries. But then I had to learn SQL, I had to learn Python, I had to learn different AI concepts. Like I've evolved from when I started. So as a requirement for you to have a certain educational background with like an official school or college, like I don't think it makes a difference. I think what makes a difference is if you actually know what you know. Now, if you take these data quest courses and you're not serious and you really didn't learn anything, then of course you're going to feel like you didn't get anything out of it. But if you're able to demonstrate your skills and communicate your skills, then I think you'll be fine. And that's what's the showcasing your skills is the biggest part. You can't just tell someone you did a data quest course, like what did you actually do? Can you show me?
I like that. Yeah. Data Quest is all about what you take from it, not about, hey, I did Data Quest. It's, hey, I did Data Quest and look what I did. Here's a great one. Are your services only for women?
Well, we tend to have men that just show up. We focus on women, but I do have like some career coaching clients now that are men. We have men that come to our events all the time. We appreciate them, and they also feel what it feels like to be in a room and be a minority, which is something they're not used to. So yeah, we actually don't block anyone from participating in our programs, but everything that we do, like we build for women. So if you were hoping for it to be men centered, I don't got you. Like I can't help you. Like I build for women, and minoritized genders. So you can come, but if we're working on something like reducing like female mortality during birth, like just know that's what we're working on. So
I think there's a lot of male doctors who need to know about these things. So um, the let's see. Is it possible to be a data analyst without knowing AI?
yes.
Uh,
Absolutely. I think so. I definitely think so. I feel like it would in my brain anyways, it would go like data analyst skills, data science skills, then like machine learning, AI skills. And there's even overlap between all of them. So I don't think like as a data analyst, you don't need to know AI. And also I would discourage you from having too many skills and then not being able to focus because if you do too many things, then it's difficult for you to showcase all of them or showcase any of them with quality.
Um, all right. Does using DataQuest Data Scientist in Python path, can you become an expert in most of the skills needed to become a data scientist? Does it cover everything? I'll let you give your opinion on this, Kishana, as much as you know about the path. And then, I'll fill in what I know, but I think your opinion on this is um, best for this question.
I think it does, but also I mentioned before that you're always going to be continually learning and you're probably going to have to adjust your skills for the environment that you're in. Because if you are a if you complete the data scientist path and then the company that you're working for is more focused on like A/B testing, then you're going to have to learn more about A/B testing. But if you're working in a data scientist role that is more like product analytics or more machine learning product focused, you're going to have to focus on that. So I feel like it provides a good foundation of like essential skills. But as I mentioned before, you have to continually learn. You don't finish a DataQuest certificate and you're done. Like you're gonna have to continually learn. That's what this industry is about, especially with all the advancements, because you might reach a stage where there's a portion of the data scientist path that is automated, but it's like you'd still be valuable in other phases of the project, right? So I feel like it provides a good foundation. Um, what do you think, Celeste?
It does. I think a couple years ago, we decided to start offering our lifetime plan. And a big reason for this is that these are skills that you're going to need to learn forever. The industry is always changing. There's always something else to learn. We do not teach everything that you might need to know in this industry on our platform, but we do teach everything that you need to learn to be successful with being able to add on anything else that you need pretty much for free after that. So there are tons of tools in the market that we don't teach and we really can't teach because they change so rapidly that we could never keep up with them. But we don't need to, because once you have the foundational skills, this is kind of back to what Kashana explained earlier. The tool doesn't matter as much. What you really need to do is develop the foundational skills. You need to be able to showcase those skills in that interview. And then the people hiring you, they also understand this industry. They're going to understand that you can learn along with them as things change and you need to be adaptable. And so what really happens is after you spend 18 months, 2 years on DataQuest, and you really learn these foundational concepts, you can use AI really effectively to ask questions. You can use Stack Overflow really effectively. You can pick up documentation for a tool, and you can really start to teach yourself everything else that you need to know. And then you can always come back to DataQuest and reference things as you forget them, or we're making big changes to our pandas and numpy content right now because they've made big updates. So there's always that, but we really have made a big decision to not teach everything and focus on the foundation because it's what you really need, and then we can do it really well.
Yeah,
uh,
because some of the core skills are problem solving and resourcefulness. So I feel like the course does what it needs to do for now.
we're running out of time now. I have somebody asking about the link to the newsletter. What we're going to do is we're going to send everybody the information about getting the newsletter and the resources that you recommended, Kishana. We're going to make sure that you don't get spammed with stuff that you don't want. But if you do want it, we'll make sure that you get that. We will be sending out a recording of the webinar. By registering for this webinar, you've been registered for the other webinars, so you'll get those notifications. So we look forward to seeing you in the future. I do have a record of all these questions. There are tons of them, which is
I'm seeing
amazing.
them. I
Uh,
saved the chat so I could so I could see if any of them are related to the next session.
Yeah, I'll try to go through and just do like a wrap up summary and kind of send out kind of a blog post with more answers in long form content after this for you all. I'll get Kashana's thoughts on those. And I'm sorry we couldn't get to everything today, but this has been amazing. And yeah, thank you so much for spending time with us today and sharing your story. It's really it's always been a pleasure getting to hear from you. And we hope this has been really impactful for everyone that was on today. So have a great rest of your day. And we'll see you, is it next week?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're together for the next 5 weeks.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.